Hi everyone, welcome. In our last lesson we started working with stem changing verbs. So in this lesson what we're going to do is we're going to review regular verbs and look at regular verbs versus stem changing verbs. We are then going to learn the very exciting and very much used verb fahren in German. And then towards the end, we'll do a little bit of practice, and I'm going to give you some tips on how you can actually begin to start thinking more in German. So let's get started. So the pattern of stem changing verbs that we're working on is A to the A umlaut pattern. We're also working in the present tense, das Präsens. Before we look at a stem changing verb, let's look at a regular verb. So everything is based on what we call regular verbs. So what does it mean, regular verb? Well, take a look at this. To go, the verb to go, gehen, is a regular verb in the present tense. So if I want to conjugate gehen, the rule is to find the root of the stem and remove the n or en ending from the infinitive. So most of the time, you're going to be removing en. So for gehen, if we remove it, we have ge. And this is the root or the stem. So the stem doesn't change for gehen. So that makes it a regular verb. So when the stem doesn't change, it is a regular verb. And what I mean by it doesn't change, when you put it in its different forms, when you quote unquote conjugate it, then you do not change the stem or the root. It stays the same. So let me show you what I mean by that. Well, to conjugate verbs in the present tense, you have to memorize these endings. There's no way around it. You have to memorize them at some point. So once you've memorized these endings, then these are the endings that you add on to the root or the stem. If it's a regular verb, that root, that stem will not change. So let's take a look at gehen. Let's conjugate it. So I have my subject pronoun here, and I have my root, ge. It's not going to change. I'm going to add the ending that goes with ich, which I've memorized. It's this e. So I have ich gehe, I go. Ich gehe. You, the informal you, I have my subject pronoun and my root, ge. And I'm adding my ending that I know, that I've memorized. Du gehst, you go. Du gehst, you go. He goes. There's my root, and I'm adding my ending, geht. Notice it's not changing, it's staying the same. That's what makes it regular. She goes, sie, I have my root, and then I add my ending, sie geht, she goes. You go, this is the formal you, singular, talking about one person, that's sie with a capital S. Here's my root or my stem, and I'm adding the ending for that, which is en. Sie gehen, you go, sie gehen. So there I've conjugated all of the singular forms, and notice the root is the same all the way through. That's what makes it regular. Let's look at the plural forms. We go. Wir gehen, we go. You go, this is the plural informal you, ihr. I add my ending, ihr geht, you go. You go. This is the formal you, plural, also with a capital S. I add my ending to the root, and I have sie gehen. And then finally, they. Notice it's a lowercase s. It's sie, but lowercase s. My root, and then I add the ending sie gehen. So they go. So again, notice the root is the same all the way through. So that's what makes it a regular verb. And we call them regular verbs because there are some that are not regular, and they're in different categories, and one is a stem changing verb. So that's the next step here. So let's go on to the next step. So again, remember, for a regular verb, the root doesn't change, or the stem. I use root and stem interchangeably. It means the same thing. Okay, so now the stem changing verb. And again, the pattern is A to A umlaut. So here's the exciting verb you're learning, fahren. This is a very important verb. It's used all the time. Fahren means to drive, like drive a car, drive a vehicle, or it can mean to go, but the idea of going somewhere by some kind of vehicle is implied. Okay, so fahren, to go or to drive. So if I remove the en, I'm left with my root or my stem. Okay, and the stem is fahr, but not in all of the forms because it is a, drum roll please, stem changing verb. So sometimes the a is going to change to an a umlaut. That's what we mean by a to a umlaut pattern. So you actually have two stems. So some of the forms are going to have this stem and some of the forms are going to have this stem. Well, how do you know? Mostly you just learn by memorization, but we'll see a pattern here. So if I want to say I go, and again, remember by a vehicle is implied, this can also mean I drive, so I go or I drive. Notice that it didn't change here. I'm just showing you the stem that you're going to use. So ich fahre, there's my ending. The endings are the same. So ich fahre, meaning I go, or it can mean I drive. You go, du. And there you have the changed form right there. So the du form is always going to have the a umlaut. So du, just add your ending, which is the same. Du fährst. You go, du fährst. So remember, this can also mean you drive. Du fährst. He goes or he drives. This one also has the stem change. Er fährt. Er fährt. And something that I haven't mentioned yet, very important for pronunciation, is you do not pronounce the a and the a with the umlaut the same. Notice fahre, fahre, fährst, fährst, fährst. The umlaut actually represents the letter E, which would normally go after the A. And of course the pronunciation for this one is also fährt, fährt, fährt. The next one, she goes. It also has the stem change. So sie and then fähr for the stem changed root. And then we add our ending, which is also T. Sie fährt, sie fährt. And then you, the formal you, notice that it goes back to the original stem. Sie fahren, sie fahren. So there you have it. The stem change only occurs in the singular form. So it's the du and the sie. There's also s, which would apply here, but I don't have an example of that. But du, sie, and s. For stem changing verbs, you have the a change to the a umlaut. Let's look at the plural forms. For the plural forms, there is no change in the stem. So we go, or we drive. Wir fahren, you go. Remember, this is the informal plural you. You're talking to more than one person. So ihr fahrt, ihr fahrt. You go. This is the you plural, formal. Sie fahren. And finally, they go. Sie, lowercase s, notice. Fahren. Sie fahren. So again, there is no stem change in the plural forms, the forms of the plural subject pronouns, only in the singular. So at this point, you know what stem changing verbs are. You know about the a to the a umlaut pattern. You know the specific verbs schlafen, which we learned in the last lesson. If you haven't seen that one, you might want to go back and watch it. We learned fahren in this lesson. So you know two a to a umlaut stem changing verbs. You know why we call them stem changing verbs, because obviously the stem changes. You know that it changes in the du and the sie and s forms only. So the next step is to put this into practice, put it into context. Think of the situation where you're in one city and you're going to another. You're going to drive to another city or go to another city by some means of transportation. So in this case, we would use nach, which means to. So we use that with fahren. Ich fahre nach And then I picked a city here randomly, Berlin. Ich fahre nach Berlin. So what does that mean? That means I go to Berlin, or I'm going to Berlin. I drive to Berlin, or I'm driving to Berlin. Now you can use any of the forms of the verb with any of the other subject pronouns with nach Berlin. So I could also say something like, du fährst nach Berlin. You're going to Berlin, or you're driving to Berlin. Or I could say, he's driving to Berlin, he's going to Berlin. Er fährt nach Berlin. You can also change the city. For example, Paris, Paris. Ich fahre nach Paris. So those are just a few of the examples. So at this point, the question is, how can I begin thinking in German? You want to do less translation, obviously, but you want to begin thinking in German. So how do you do that with the knowledge that you have? Well, it's actually very simple. You just use your imagination. This is the old-fashioned way. Just imagine that you are in one place and you're going to another. So you can just change the name of the cities. So for example, you could say, without thinking in English or another language, you have fahren and you have nach, and you know the names of some cities. So put it all together. Start thinking, okay? Imagine you're in Berlin and you're going to Munich. So you could say, ich fahre nach München. Also imagine, of course, without the English, imagine you're in Berlin and you're going to Düsseldorf. You could say, ich fahre nach Düsseldorf. Maybe look at a map of Germany and just pick a city that you see. And let's say you see Stuttgart. You could say, ich fahre nach Stuttgart. And just keep practicing without translating through another language. Just keep expressing the thought and see how many things that you can say. You can also change the subject pronoun. So after I'm done practicing with ich, you can go to er. So think about maybe your brother and say, okay, he's going to Berlin. Er fährt nach Berlin. Now you point at Stuttgart on the map and you say, er fährt nach Stuttgart. You could say he's going to Dortmund. Er fährt nach Dortmund. Bielefeld. Er fährt nach Bielefeld. You can change it to, now maybe you're talking about your sister, sie. So you could say, sie fährt nach Berlin. Sie fährt nach Stuttgart. Sie fährt nach Nuremberg. And just keep going. Just keep practicing. That's how we did it in the old days. You just, once you learned a little bit of information, you really try to put it into practice, process it through your brain, imagine using it in a real life situation. And that's the way to, quote unquote, think a little bit in German. Okay, so let me just end this lesson by telling you that now that you know about A to A umlaut stem changers, there are other A to A umlaut stem changers that you should know. For example, braten, to fry, like fry something in a frying pan. Fallen, to fall. Fangen, to catch. Lassen, to allow or to let. Tragen, to carry. Waschen, to wash. And you already know schlafen and fahren. So for all of these new verbs here, when you conjugate them, it's very simple. In the du, the er, sie, and s forms, you have to change the A to an A umlaut. And remember, the sound is going to change. You're going to change from A to an E sound, roughly. And that's it for this lesson. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, I would appreciate it very much if you'd give it a like. If you know somebody else that's learning German and you think this might benefit them, please share. And if you haven't already subscribed, then consider subscribing. Thanks so much for accompanying me in this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Tschüss.